Assalamu alaikum, my sensory students and friends. I have the honor to see you again in our attractive class, and I would like to invite you to our lecture, Introduction to Economics. Let me firstly apologize for technical gaps and other factors. And I would like you to attend this significant lecture, and would like also to invite you to express your needs, questions, disturbances, and troubleness, and I will react immediately to your questions. Before I equipped you with many references, and sheets, but we are not going to restrict our course and to draw constraints for providing this course. We will try to cover this course using various techniques. And aids. We will supply you by various materials, including PPT, PDF, Word, and we will supply you by various other techniques and supports. Previous exams, examples, problems, solutions, example of exams, and I'll be ready to answer your questions. And I'll be ready to solve your confusions. Please don't hesitate to call me or to write me using WhatsApp, whatever, Telegram, emails, and other mediums of social media. Okay. I think we will jump over these difficulties and we will defeat the impossibilities. طلاب الأعزاء، أرحب بكم مرة أخرى وأتشرف بأن نعرض هذا المقرر من خلال منصة جامعة الرازي. أيها الأصدقاء، سنسعى إلى الانتصار على هذه الظروف، وسنكثف جهدنا لمساعدتكم مع علمنا التام بكل الظروف التي تحيط بنا جميعا. سوف نعمل على تسهيل انسياب هذا المقرر من خلال المذكرات ومن خلال منصة جامعة الرازي، من خلال المراجع، من خلال نماذج الامتحانات التي سوف نعرضها عليكم، ومن خلال حل الأسئلة، ومن خلال الرد على تساؤلاتكم. كل ما نود أن نقوم به هو أن نساعدكم لكي تتوفقوا ولكي تعبروا هذا الظرف الصعب. أشكركم جزيلا على قبولكم اعتذاري، وأتمنى وآمل أن تطلعوا على هذه المنصة وأن تتفاعلوا معها وأن تطرحوا أسئلتكم، وإننا نعدكم بالرد عليها من خلال جميع وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي. لن نتأخر على المساعدة في حل مشاكلكم. أتمنى لكم حظا سعيدا، وأنا على ثقة تامة بقدرتكم على تجاوز هذه الصعاب. As you know, I'm trusting your capacity and your performance and your ability to pass this difficult period. I will do my best to help you and to aid you. No doubt to answer or to react to your problems efficiently and effectively. Don't stop questioning, asking. Do your best to cooperate with instructors to reach our achievement, to implement our mission and vision, to understand the core points of this discipline. Thank you very much. Hello again and welcome to the second slide of this lecture. I would like firstly to introduce you with the main and basic terms of economics. This action will help us to understand the essence of economics. Based on the scope of this discipline, the instructor defines the course as a combination of introduction to microeconomics and macroeconomics. This course easier to name it principles of economics or introduction to economics. There is no huge differences between the two terminologies, introduction to or principles of. I designed this discipline based on the classification of this course. I classified this course as an interaction or integration, actually, macro and microeconomics. Right. In this manner, easier to say economics or to describe this course as theory of economic. Now, the first definition advocates that this course has two branches. One of them is microeconomics and the other is macroeconomics. مقدمة الاقتصاد هي عبارة عن توليفة بين الاقتصاد الكلي والاقتصاد الجزئي. تم تصميم هذا المقرر على هذا الأساس، أنه عبارة عن مقدمة لنظرية الاقتصاد الجزئي ومقدمة لنظرية الاقتصاد الكلي. Now, economics or theory of economics is a social science. Study how people allocate scarce resources for production, distribution, and consumption, both individually and collectively. Using this definition, we will capture three elements of economics. The first characteristic: economics is a social science. We consider economics as a social science. المجتمع focuses on what? Study what? Aims to what? This social science aims to meet the needs of people, collectively or individually. To meet the needs of people can be done through the main phases as production, distribution, and consumption. Of course, no consumption without distribution, no distribution of products and goods without production. The main step is to produce goods and services. The second step is to distribute these goods and services. The last step is to consume these goods and services. Of course, as individual or individual demand or aggregate demand. إذن نحن نتحدث عن النظرية الاقتصادية باعتبارها علم اجتماعي يهدف إلى ماذا؟ يهدف لمقابلة احتياجات الناس المادية، يهدف احتياجات تلبية احتياجات المجتمع والأفراد. والمقصود باحتياجات المجتمع هي السلع والخدمات من خلال الإنتاج والتوزيع والاستهلاك. Let us illustrate this sentence. Study of how people allocate scarce resources. Later, we will highlight what do we mean by scarce resources. Resources are scarce. موارد نادرة. إذن النظرية الاقتصادية تهدف إلى تلبية حاجات المجتمع وتخصيص تلك الموارد النادرة. Respectively, Economics has two branches: macroeconomics and microeconomics. macroeconomics الاقتصاد الكلي، microeconomics الاقتصاد الجزئي. These are main branches of theory of economic. We mentioned before, easier to say theory of economic without yes, or to say economics. Let us acknowledge with the term of microeconomics. What stands behind this term? Microeconomics, as a branch of economics, investigates the decision-making process of individuals, household, and business, particularly in the market of goods and services. It explains the behavior of individuals or economic unit like consumer or supplier. Microeconomics answers the questions of how individual demand and supply goods and services. It is a science of behavior. It is a science of behavior. What behavior? Which behavior? Behavior that explains how people or individual demand or supply goods and services. Here we assume individual like consumer المستهلك and supplier as economic unit. Macroeconomics, from other hand, focuses on analyzing a nation's overall economic performance and behavior, including factors like gross national and domestic product and employment, national income, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Microeconomics, let's return back. Microeconomics explain the behavior of individuals, while macroeconomics explain the behavior of community. It focuses on the terms of national economy. الاقتصاد الجزئي يوضح سلوك الأفراد، وعندما نتحدث عن الأفراد نتحدث عن الأفراد بالمفهوم الاقتصادي كوحدات اقتصادية. كمثال، المستهلك وحدة اقتصادية والمنتج وحدة اقتصادية. We deal with consumer and supplier as economic units. نحن نتعامل مع المنتج والمستهلك كوحدات اقتصادية. الماكروeconomics يقوم على تجميع كل هذه الوحدات الاقتصادية ويفسر السلوك بتاعها. الاقتصاد الكلي يركز على تفسير سلوك المجتمع الاقتصادي، يركز على تفسير المصطلحات الاقتصادية، الظواهر الاقتصادية ذات الطابع القومي. ولذلك الاقتصاد الكلي يتحدث عن الناتج الإجمالي القومي، عن الناتج الإجمالي المحلي، عن العطالة، عن التضخم، عن الدخل القومي، عن الطلب الكلي والعرض الكلي. So macroeconomics focuses on economics issues, concerns with the economics issues that take national feature characteristics, deals with the community problems, deals with the behavior of communities, behavior of national economy, like gross national product الناتج الإجمالي القومي, domestic product الناتج الإجمالي المحلي, unemployment العطالة, inflation التضخم, national income الدخل القومي, aggregate supply and aggregate demand العرض الكلي للسلع والخدمات والطلب الكلي للسلع والخدمات. It is an aggregative approach, مدخل كلي للنظرية الاقتصادية. إذن economics has two branches, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Thank you very much. Resources or economic resources stands for capital, labor, land and management, enterprise. Now, capital, labor, land, management، رأس المال، العمل، land الأرض والطبيعة، management الإدارة، are known as economic resources موارد اقتصادية or tools of production وسائل إنتاج or factors of production. We will highlight the means of these factors later on. Economizing problems or economizing problem المشكلة الاقتصادية reflects the relation between limited resources and unlimited wants. We mean by economizing problem unlimited wants رغبات غير محدودة and limited resources. We mean by wants in this case needs, goods and services. The willingness, the desire of individual, community are unlimited. رغبات المجتمع والأفراد غير محدودة. but the resources which satisfy these wants are limited. The contradiction between unlimited wants and limited resources known as economizing problem. نسميها بالمشكلة الاقتصادية. المشكلة الاقتصادية عبارة عن موارد محدودة ورغبات غير محدودة. Its elements are choice and sacrifice. الاختيار والتضحية. You choose A, then you sacrifice B. You choose B, then you have to sacrifice A. There are various schools of economics. This is which we call it the historical development of economic ظاهر. تاريخ تطور الفكر الاقتصادي. تطور الفكر الاقتصادي مر عبر مراحل. The development of economic zone passes various and many steps. Historically, we can compute the classical school, المدرسة الكلاسيكية أو التقليدية. آدم سميث، ديفيد ريكاردو، كارل ماركس, and so on, etc. But we will restrict our issues with the Keynesian schools and monetarism. Keynesian economics belongs to the scientist John Maynard Keynes, a British scientist. Mainly, John Maynard Keynes suggests the government intervention to stabilize the economy. عموما المدرسة الكينزية اقترحت تدخل الدولة في الشأن الاقتصادي, focusing on aggregate demand, بالتركيز على الطلب الكلي. جون مينارد كينز من أنصار تدخل الدولة في النشاط الاقتصادي. He is pro government intervention to stabilize the economy, focusing on aggregate demand, الطلب الكلي, as a driving force, قوة دافعة for economic output, للمخرجات الاقتصادية. From other hand, University of Chicago, Milton Friedman, the monetarism school, advocates that controlling the growth rate of economic supply is essential for maintaining economic stability. From other hand, نظر مختلفة تماما. Milton Friedman represents the new liberal issues, the new liberal trends in economy. He centers on the role of money supply in maintaining economic stability. He did not recognize the role of government. That's why they name school or his school as monetarism. He focuses on the role of money. Actually, he focuses on the role of money supply. Let's move to the next term, gross national product. Abbreviationally GMP, الناتج الإجمالي القومي. What is the function of this term? It measures the total market value of goods and services produced abroad during a specific period of time. الناتج الإجمالي القومي هو عبارة عن القيمة السوقية للسلع والخدمات المنتجة بعناصر إنتاج البلد المعين بغض النظر regardless عن موقع الإنتاج. Gross domestic product, from the other hand, measures the total market value of goods and services produced with the border of a country during a specific period of time. فترة زمنية معينة، عادة سنة. إذن these two terms also are known as the key measures of economic activity، ويعتبروا من المقاييس الأساسية للنشاط الاقتصادي لأي دولة. gross domestic product الناتج الإجمالي القومي and gross national product الناتج الإجمالي المحلي. Now, inflation, which the problem which faces our community all time. تضخم. ماذا يعني التضخم؟ The gradual decline in the purchasing power of currency. هو عبارة عن الانخفاض المستمر لقيمة العملة الوطنية أو القوة الشرائية للجنيه السوداني، انخفاض القوة الشرائية للجنيه السوداني، أو عبارة عن ارتفاع أسعار السلع والخدمات، rise of the general level of price، ارتفاع أسعار السلع والخدمات. انخفاض قيمة الجنيه السوداني تجاه الدولار يسمى inflation تضخم. ارتفاع أسعار السلع والخدمات يسمى أيضا inflation أو تضخم. Exchange rate. What do we mean by exchange rate? سعر الصرف. The value of one currency in terms of a second currency. Well, generally, the value of Sudanese pound against dollar, for example. exchange rate اللي هو سعر الصرف. The main two policies in each national economy are two: fiscal policy and monetary policy. السياسة المالية والسياسة الاقتصادية. Fiscal policy السياسة المالية. It's a combination of taxation and spending measures that allow the government to guide the economy. أدوات السياسة المالية هم الضرائب والإنفاق الحكومي. Usually used by government to stabilize the economy. عادة بيستخدم من قبل الحكومة لاستقرار الاقتصاد. Monetary policy, the function of central bank، هي وظيفة البنك المركزي. This policy aims to affect the supply or cost of money. It aims to determine base of money، الكتلة النقدية، interest rate، أسعار الفائدة. Central Bank controls the money supply، بيتحكم في عرض النقود أو الكتلة النقدية. This function or this policy belongs to the central bank. The arrangement and design of this policy belongs to the central bank purely. Opportunity cost، تكلفة الفرص البديلة، the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. If you choose alternative A, then you will sacrifice alternative B. Then you lost the potential gain from that choice which you rejected. Bank، an institution offering certain financial services، مؤسسة مالية بيعرض خدمات مالية. business cycle أو دورة النشاط الاقتصادي refers to recurrent fluctuation between boom and depression in the economic activity. عبارة عن صعود، هي سلسلة سيريز، صعود وهبوط النشاط الاقتصادي أو ركود النشاط الاقتصادي. diminishing return، تناقص القلة، means progressively smaller rises in output. resulting from the increased application of variable input as labor to fixed quantity of capital or land. هي بتنتج عبارة عن إضافة عنصر إنتاج متغير إلى عنصر إنتاج ثابت. عادة عنصر الإنتاج المتغير اللي هو variable input to add variable input like labor to the fixed one like capital. Okay. Now, the contents. Let me introduce you with the main content of this course. Scope and nature of economics, definition, branches of economics, classical function of production اللي هي دالة الإنتاج الكلاسيكية، fundamental questions الأسئلة الأساسية في الاقتصاد، economizing problem and elements of economizing problem، مشكلة الاقتصادية، عناصر المشكلة الاقتصادية، theory of demand نظرية الطلب، which include consists of law of demand قانون الطلب، demand curve منحنى الطلب، determinants of demand يعني محددات الطلب، theory of supply نظرية العرض، consists of law of supply قانون العرض، supply curve منحنى العرض، determinants of supply محددات العرض، supply and quantity supply اللي هم العرض والعرض الكمية المعروضة، elasticity المرونة، elasticity of course of demand and elasticity of supply مرونة الطلب ومرونة العرض، market equilibrium توازن السوق، theory of marginal utility and indifference curves نظرية المنفعة الحدية ومنحنيات السواء، production cost and profit functions دوال الإنتاج والتكاليف والربح، and market structure approximately these contexts belong to microeconomics analysis. For macroeconomics, we choose the following contents. Main sectors of national economy أهم القطاعات الاقتصادية في أي اقتصاد عمومي. Key measures of economic activities أهم مقاييس النشاط الاقتصادي. Circular flow of income تدفق الدائري للدخل. Consumption and saving function دالة الاستهلاك ودالة الادخار. Equilibrium level of income المستوى التوازني للدخل. Fiscal policy السياسة المالية. Money and monetary policy النقود والسياسة النقدية. IS and LM equations معادلة IS و LM. Investment الاستثمار. Unemployment العطالة. Inflation التضخم. I think if we will success to cover these contents, we will pass this course efficiently, effectively, and we will gain more advantages. And it will help us to understand the issues of IT economics as the new modern approach. Thank you very much. let's touch the nature of economics. Economics is a science. What do we mean by science? Science is an organized branch of knowledge that analyzes cause and effect relationship between economic agents, economic variables. It focuses on explanation the phenomenon accordingly we can look to economics as positive economics and normative economics. The issues of economics: positive economics الاقتصاد الوضعي and normative economics الاقتصاد المعياري. What stands behind positive economics? As a positive science is the one that studies the relationship between two variables but does not give any value judgment. What that means? For example, we consider price as economic variable. نعتبر السعر هو متغير اقتصادي, and the quantity demanded also as economic variable, أيضا متغير اقتصادي. Now we have two economic variables. From one hand, price, from other hand, quantity demanded. The positive economics studies the relation between price and quantity demanded. So it just studies the relationship between these two variables and does not give any value or judgment. لا يحكم عليها, لا يحكم على, إنما فقط يدرس العلاقة بين المتغيرين, بين متغير السعر ومتغير الكمية المطلوبة. But normative economics as a normative science gives value judgment, يحكم على هذه العلاقة. What is the nature? So positive economics describes and explains various economic phenomena. Positive economics describes and explains various economic phenomena. هو بيفسر الاقتصاد الوضعي, بيفسر مختلف الظواهر الاقتصادية phenomena. From other hand, normative economics focuses on the value of economic fairness. It gives value judgment. Is it correct or right? Is it fair or unfair? So Positive economics is based on fact and cannot approved of or disapproved, while normative economics is based on value judgment. So, economics as a science has two fields or two branches. We describe economics as science, as positive economics, as well as normative economics. The second nature of economics is an art, fun. Art is a discipline that expresses the way things are to be done so as to achieve direct end. Therefore, economics is considered as science, as art. إذن اقتصاد علم وفن. The art of explaining and applying, وفن التفسير وفن تطبيق النظريات الاقتصادية. How to find the solution for economic problem. This is an art. How to solve the problem of inflation. كيف نحل مشكلة التضخم. This is a science as well as an art. How to reduce the rate of unemployment, for example. كيف نخفض معدل التضخم، أو كيف نخفض معدل البطالة. This is a science and an art. So, the summary of this slide: economics is a science, economics is an art. As the science has two branches, two fields: positive economics الاقتصاد الوضعي and normative economics. Okay, do you remember previously we divided economics into two branches or two fields: macroeconomics and microeconomics. And we made stress, easier to say, theory of economic or economics. Economics should be considered as a substitution of theory of economic. Now, microeconomics is a science. Once it is a part of the whole economics, it is a science. Of course, it is an art also. Once economics is an art. Microeconomics explains the behavior of individuals. تفسر سلوك الوحدات الاقتصادية separately، كل على حدة. Microeconomics focuses on the behavior of individuals, between brackets, economic units, economic units. We consider, for example, consumer as economic unit. نفترض انه المستهلك هو وحدة اقتصادية. The producer also economic unit. Supplier economic unit. الجزيرة scheme economic unit. Sega economic unit, etc. etc. From other hand, macroeconomics talks about economy as a whole. It focuses on the behavior of community, the behavior of state, the economic behavior of the state, government. Now, let's distinguish between the characteristics of microeconomics and the characteristics of macroeconomics. Putting into account the essential function of each. Let's look to this schedule, the column of microeconomics. Microeconomics is about what? Individual market. Individual market. Market is a context between consumer and supplier. Market of consumer and market of supplier. Microeconomics effect on price of a commodity. And this is the spectrum. It studies the effects on price of a commodity. What do we mean by commodity? Commodity, it is goods and services. Consumer and market behavior, سلوك المستهلك وسلوك السوق. Supplier and market behavior, demand and supply of commodity. Additionally, it centers on the market equilibrium, for example. Elasticity, توازن المرونة. Market equilibrium, توازن السوق. Production function، دالة الإنتاج. Costs function، دالة التكاليف. Profit and revenue functions، دوال الربح والإيرادات. The structure of markets، هيكل السوق. Summarize the microeconomics about the part of economy, while macroeconomics talks about the whole economy. Whole economy, or it centers in the topics of indicators of national economy, like what? Gross national product الناتج الإجمالي القومي, domestic gross domestic product الناتج الإجمالي المحلي, national income الدخل القومي, aggregate supply and aggregate demand الطلب الكلي والعرض الكلي للسلع, inflation التضخم, market of money سوق النقود, market of goods and services سوق السلع والخدمات, market of labor سوق العمل. So macroeconomics is about the whole economy. It's about fiscal policy, السياسة المالية. It's about monetary policy, السياسة النقدية. It's about external debts, الدين الخارجي. It's about export and import. It's about international trade, التجارة الخارجية. It is about unemployment, العطالة. It is about inflation, التضخم. It's about the general level of price, المستوى العام للأسعار. So, as we mentioned before, our course should be divided into two parts, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Actually, introduction of microeconomics and introduction of macroeconomics. Okay. Understanding the issues of microeconomics and understanding the issue of macroeconomics. As we pronounced before, microeconomics as well as macroeconomics will help us to design about the modern IT economics, اقتصاديات تقنية المعلومات, the new issue, the application of economics in the sphere of IT, كيفية تطبيق النظرية الاقتصادية في مجال التقنية المعلومات, the economics of IT. Do our best to design this discipline. It will be a huge achievement of our college. We mean by issues of economics actually the syllabus of our course. The syllabus of our course. This course classified as microeconomics issues and macroeconomic issues. For microeconomic issues, we are planning to establish the issues of demand and quantity demanded, supply and quantity supplied, طلب الكمية المطلوبة، العرض والكمية المعروضة، market السوق، production function دالة الإنتاج، cost function دالة التكاليف، revenue and profit function دالة الإيرادات ودالة الأرباح، ثم الماركت structure هيكل السوق. Now, before going in depth, the basic of economics is the theory of demand and the theory of supply. The most fundamental issues in economics as a whole, theory of demand and theory of supply. We mentioned before that economics combination of theory, laws, concepts, application, etc. But the main issues of economics stands behind theory of demand and theory of supply. Later we will distinguish between demand and quantity demanded, supply and quantity supplied. Just I would like you to put in account these are the main concepts of the main syllabus that belong to microeconomics branch. From other hand, the macroeconomics branch will cover sectors of national economy, the main sectors of national economy. What do we mean by the main sectors of national economy? Household sector, القطاع العائلي, investment sector or production sector, القطاع الاستثماري أو القطاع الإنتاجي, government sector, القطاع الحكومي, and international trade sector, قطاع التجارة الخارجية. This is the entrance to study macroeconomics. Respectively, we will emphasize the importance and significance of terminologies like national income الناتج القومي. The two issues of national income is gross domestic product and gross national product. Sorry, national product has two issues: gross domestic product الناتج الإجمالي المحلي and gross national product الناتج الإجمالي القومي. National income has a strong relation with national product. It follows national product. So the correlation between national product and national income علاقة بين الناتج القومي والناتج والدخل القومي is very strong, very strong. Then aggregate demand and aggregate supply. هو aggregate means كلي، طلب الكلي للسلع والخدمات والعرض الكلي للسلع والخدمات. This is different from consumer demand and market demand. Producer supply and market supply. The main also is the two policies: fiscal policy سياسة مالية, money and monetary policy النقود والسياسة النقدية. Of course, inflation تضخم. The problem of unemployment مشكلة البطالة. And we will try to define and list the characteristics of the three main markets: market of goods and services, market of money, and market of labor. In economics, usually we concentrate on or in two main policies: fiscal policy سياسة المالية and monetary policy سياسة المالية. And also we focus on three main markets: market of commodity, market of goods and services سوق السلع والخدمات, market of money سوق النقود, and market of labor. Because our goals about the introduction of economics, we are not planning to go in details of these issues. We will center only on those issues that help you understand the issues of our course or discipline. Okay. Production function. Scientists say that the main points of triangle of economic activities are three: production, distribution, and consumption. This line start from production, passes distribution, and end to the consumption. These are main points of triangle of economic activities. So, in order to consume goods, we have to receive these goods. We have to purchase it. To purchase goods and services, some point or some action should be done. This action is a production. The first step to satisfy our needs, we need to produce goods and services. Then we have to distribute these goods and services. The last station is to consume these goods and services. So the process of satisfaction should pass these 3 points: production, distribution, and consumption. But how we can produce goods and services? To produce goods and services, we have to mix various resources. For example, land, sugar, labor, wheat, electricity to produce bread. Or some other cakes. So, in order to produce goods and services, we have to mix various resources. The process of mixing is known as production function, or illustrated by production function. production function refers to equations. إذن عشان نستهلك سلعة أو خدمة يجب إنتاج هذه السلعة أو الخدمة، وعشان ننتج سلعة أو خدمة يجب أن نمزج بين مختلف عناصر الإنتاج لإنتاج هذه السلعة أو الخدمة: دقيق، كهرباء، العمال، المبنى، الغاز، الخميرة and others. These various resources should be mixed to produce goods and to produce bread. Production functions refers to equations. نقصد بدالة الإنتاج معادلات، مختلف المعادلات that expresses تعبر عن ماذا؟ that expresses the relationship، العلاقة بين شنو between the quantities and productive factors. إذن دالة الإنتاج تعبر عن العلاقة بين الكمية المنتجة وعوامل الإنتاج like what such as capital and labor. capital هو رأس المال and labor هو العمل. used an amount of product obtained. The main types of function يعني دالة الإنتاج عندها أشكال كثيرة وأنواع كثيرة or we will restrict it this to production function. classical function of production اللي هي الدالة الكلاسيكية للإنتاج كوب دوغلاس function ودالة كوب دوغلاس. For the purpose of our course, we will focus only on the classical one. Pay attention, please. Where Q equal C, L, N, and M. This function is known as a classical function, where C stands for capital, رأس المال, L stands for labor, عمل, N stands for land or nature, أرض أو طبيعة, M stands for management. So the main of these factors are two: capital and labor. Remains also very important, but capital and labor are the main. C, L, N and M: capital, labor, nature or land, management, known as economic resources, موارد اقتصادية, or tools of production, أدوات إنتاج, factors of production, عوامل إنتاج, etc. So you can see is economic resources or factors of production or tools of production. interchangeably. Okay. Now this is known classical function of production. Is known as classical function of production. The process of mixing these four resources will give us goods and services. The process of mixing these factors is known also as production process. العملية الإنتاجية. So the production process leads to produce goods and services, or leads to the production of goods and services. So the process of mixing these four factors known as production process. Of course, these factors are not all time available. The nature of these factors, they are limited and scarce. The limitation and scarcity of these factors is the most considerable issues in theory of economics. It's the most considerable issue in theory of economics. Next, we will break down the problem of limitation and scarcity of these resources. Okay, I would like to suggest some concepts of economics, which I assume it would be helpful in our process. The first concept is very known and famous in the sphere of economics: opportunity cost. The statement of opportunity cost is the benefit of the next best alternative which have been sacrificed due to the choice of the best alternative. What that means? Now, you face two alternatives, A and B. If you choose A, then you sacrifice B, and inverse. If you choose B, then you sacrifice A. So each of alternatives has benefit. Once you choose A, then you will lose the benefits of alternative B. So the cost of the foregone benefits of alternative V, or the benefit of alternative B that you sacrificed, is known as opportunity cost. Is known as opportunity cost. And other example, you have two alternatives, easier to choose faculty of economics or faculty of management. Easier, economics or management. So if you choose economics, then you will lose the gains or benefit of management. The cost of ignoring the alternative of management is known as opportunity cost. Now, the second is incremental reasoning. Incremental principle states that a decision is profitable. A decision is profitable. القرار بتاعك هيكون مربح جدا جدا if revenue increases more than cost. We consider your decision is profitable. القرار بتاعك هيولد ربح. Your decision leads to gain profit. In case of what? Conditionally. In case of revenue increases لو كانت الإيرادات more than cost، لو كانت الإيرادات تزيد عن التكاليف. If costs reduce more than revenue، لو كانت التكاليف تنخفض بمعدل أكبر من انخفاض الإيرادات. If increase in some revenue is more than decrease in others, and if decrease in some cost is greater than increase in others. So now let us break down the incremental reasoning in economics. It covers 4 aspects or 4 conditions. 1. The incremental principle states that a decision is considered profitable if number one, if revenue increases more than cost. لو الشرط الأول إذا كانت الإيرادات بتزيد بمعدل أو بنسبة أكبر من التكاليف. number two, if costs reduce more than revenue. إذا كان معدل انخفاض التكاليف أعلى من معدل انخفاض الإيرادات. number 3, if increasing some revenue, لو كانت الزيادة في أحد بنود الإيرادات أعلى من انخفاض البنود الأخرى. number 4, if decreasing some cost, لو الانخفاض في التكاليف كان أعلى is greater than increasing others. So that means the incremental principles consist of 4 items or 4 conditions. The concept number 3 is about discounting principle. The discounting factor determines the present value of future inflow of cash. So what that means? The current value of $100 that you will receive at the end of 2023. The current value of future inflow the current value of $100 that you will receive it in the future at the end of the year. This is known as the discounting principle. In this case, let me remind you about 2 aspects in this case: the future value of current cash and the current cash of the future value. The future value of current $100 at the end of the year, and the current value of 100 you should receive it at the end of the year. Economizing problem and fundamental questions. The economizing problem is a fundamental concept in economics. It refers to phenomena where society's wants are unlimited while resources are limited. This gap between two variables is known as economizing problem. طيب. Now let me emphasize the nature of the factors of production or economic resources. Economic resources, the nature of economic resources is limited and scarce. Limitation and scarcity are main features of economic resources. Once the limitation and scarcity of resources limit the quantity of production or limit the types of goods and services. From one hand. From other hand, our wants are unlimited. So the economizing problem states that إنه رغبات المجتمع أو حتى رغباتنا نحن كأفراد غير محدودة. ليه؟ Let me ensure that fact. Economics as science deals with the rational people. Everyone rationally wants to improve his life, to develop his life, and to modernize his life. This is just wants. The willingness is not enough to satisfy your utility. The willingness, it is not enough to meet your satisfactions, to meet your needs. Desire, want, willingness is just a hope. These wants should be equipped by goods and services. Goods and services should be equipped by production. Production itself should be equipped by abundance of resources. once resources are limited, then our wants also are should be limited. So the contradiction between limitation and unlimitation. رغبات المجتمع متجددة ومتزايدة ومتنوعة، لكن هذه الرغبات لا يمكن الاستجابة لها في كل الأوقات وفي كل الظروف، لأن الموارد التي تلبي هذه الرغبات محدودة، ومن هنا تظهر المشكلة الاقتصادية. Take for example KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This state, this kingdom, doesn't face any shortage in capital and labor. To grow, for example, wheat or cotton. They have capital, they can acquire labor, they have management, but kingdom faces the problem of climate that prevent its project in producing cotton, for example. The shortage of suitable climate doesn't satisfy their want to produce cotton. المملكة العربية السعودية لديها وفر في رأس المال، يمكن أن توفر العمل، ولديها الإدارة، لكن المشكلة التي تواجهها المملكة العربية السعودية في زراعة القطن هو كلايمة المناخ، عدم توفر المناخ المناسب لزراعة القطن. Spite of the abundance of other factors، بالرغم من توفر العوامل الأخرى، لكنها لا تستطيع إنتاج القطن. Take Sudan for example. If we would like to grow whatever winter goods, we are suffering the abundance of climate. Therefore, the contradiction between the limitation of resources and unlimitation of wants leads to appearance of economizing problem. إذن هذا التعارض أو عدم التوافق بين الرغبات غير المحدودة والموارد المحدودة يؤدي إلى ظهور المشكلة الاقتصادية. طيب. Accordingly, The economizing problem has two elements: choice and sacrifice. الاختيار والتضحية. Assume that you have limited land. In this case, we have two alternatives. Easier to choose A, or to grow wheat and forgot rice, or to grow rice and forget wheat, or to produce little quantity of each. إذا كان عندنا مساحة للزراعة محدودة ولدينا خياران: أو نزرع قمح أو نزرع أرز. ممكن نزرع قمح وبالتالي ignore or forget about the rice، ننسى الرز، أو to choose rice أو نختار زراعة الأرز و نلقي زراعة القمح، أو نختار زراعتهم الاثنين مع بعض لكن بكميات أقل، وهذه الكميات الأقل لا تلبي احتياجاتنا. إذن choice and sacrifice are known as the elements of economizing problem. The choice of A will neglect B, will ignore B. The choice of B will ignore A. Easier to choose A then forget B, or to choose B then forget A. الاختيار والتضحية. Based on above mentioned, there are three fundamental questions in economics. What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. These are known as fundamental questions of economics. What to produce, ماذا ننتج. Technologically, how to produce these goods and services. For whom to produce. دي بنسميها الأسئلة الأساسية في الاقتصاد. ماذا ننتج، كيف ننتج، ولمن ننتج. These are known as fundamental questions of economics. What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. These three fundamental questions are the results of economizing problem, the harvest of economizing problem. Now, so the problem involves the allocation of resources among competing wants. How to allocate limited resources optimally to satisfy the minimum of our wants. The, the, the optimal allocation of scarce resources has a strong correlation with economizing problem. How to distribute these limited resources among competing wants. كيف نوزع الموارد النادرة دي حول الرغبات المتنافسة مع بعض. There is a problem because there are unlimited wants, unlimited resources. That's why we have to allocate scarce resources optimally. Economizing problem pushes community to allocate these scarce resources optimally in order to avoid the factor of scarcity of goods and services. Of course, scarcity of economic resources leads to minimum satisfaction. Of our wants. Production possibility curve and production possibility frontier. These terms, two terms, are the expression of economizing problem وتعبير عن ندرة أو المشكلة الاقتصادية. PPC stands for production possibility curve, منحنى إمكانية الإنتاج. منحنى إمكانية الإنتاج is nothing but a combination of points where each point shows the quantity of two different goods that can be produced by an economy, assuming that the resources and technology are being used efficiently. The relation between the quantity of two products is in pairs. Graphical representation. A graphical representation of production of two goods. As a result of scarce resources, the quantity produced of two products has inverse relation. What that means? The high production of wheat leads to low production of cotton, and inverse. The high production of cotton leads to low production of wheat. هذا المنحنى يعبر عن إنتاج سلعتين. الكمية المنتجة من أي سلعة ذات علاقة عكسية مع الكمية المنتجة من السلعة الأخرى. مثلا إذا أنتجنا 10 وحدات من القمح، هذا يعني إنتاج وحدتين من القطن. إذا أنتجنا 8 وحدات من القمح، سوف نزيد إنتاج القطن إلى 4 وحدات. إذا خفضنا إنتاج القمح من 8 إلى 6، سنزيد إنتاج القطن من 4 إلى 6. الكمية المنتجة من السلعة A ذات علاقة عكسية مع الكمية المنتجة من السلعة B. كل ما زاد إنتاج القمح قل إنتاج القطن، والعكس هو الصحيح. ولذلك المنحنى الذي يعبر عن هذه العلاقة منحنى سالب الميل، sloping down. The nature of this curve is the sloping down because of the negative relation between the production of A and production of B. High, low, low, high. Okay. So, as we mentioned, the PPC or production possibility curve is an expression of economizing problem. The choice of producing high quantity of wheat leads to sacrifice the quantity of cotton. إذا اخترنا إنتاج كمية كبيرة من القمح، معناها سوف نضحي بإنتاج كمية من القطن، والعكس هو الصحيح. Both PPC and PPF اللي هي حدود الإنتاج production possibility frontier are graphical representation of different combination of two goods that can be produced with available resources. The difference between PPC and PPF الفرق بين منحنى إمكانية الإنتاج وحدود إمكانية الإنتاج. The PPF shows the maximum of product obtained. إنه حدود إمكانية الإنتاج بيعرض أعلى كمية يمكن إنتاجها في حدود الموارد المتاحة. But PPS or PPC doesn't consider this fact. it doesn't consider this fact. This sometimes the two terms are used interchangeably, but many economists centers or focus on the PPC as a graphical representation between the choice of A and sacrifice of B. I think this is enough ground to establish our entrance to the main concepts or main syllabus of our course. This slide passes the fundamental ground of our course. Main concepts of economics, main issues of economics, the differences between the two branches of economics, macroeconomics and microeconomics, and the economizing problem, the elements of economizing problem, the fundamental questions in economics, the production possibility curve and production possibility frontier. I wish this slide will satisfy your needs in understanding the entrance of this course.
سجل كده في بعيد
الصوت واضح هاي
غير هناك ولا سماعة